2024 has seen record-breaking numbers in terms of entry of illegal migrants across the Mediterranean. The European Union, to take the pressure off of the southern countries somewhat, but also to advance its own social engineering agenda, has recently passed a reform of its migration pact, specifically the application for refugee status procedures. It's also given itself the power to declare an emergency state, to change its conditions and force member states to take on more refugees. Some of the funding that comes from the Commission to the member states of the EU through the Resilience and Recovery Facility specifically depend on how much of your population is made up of refugees and how much of your workforce is made up of workers from outside Europe. European Union funding justifies itself largely in terms of something it calls resilience, which is a term that the UN uses as well. It's a pretty vague idea, but the EU came up with a resilience dashboard, a bunch of factors that it takes into account in determining resilience. And you find there that, for example, the total number of non-EU or the percentage of non-European origin workers or the settled refugees from outside Europe as a percentage of the total population of a certain country in Europe are considered to increase resilience, which is odd because you're not increasing the resilience of a society by doing that. There is a sense in which the political class conceives of diversity as an instrument for reducing social cohesion and making society easier to control in general.
Together, we are tolerance and progress, education and sharing, peace, peace, peace forever.
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 And ever.
Together, we have faced difficulties. Don't listen to fear, hate, and weakness. They don't have any ambition. The future is ours. We are the European Union, and together we are unstoppable.
I'm actually a fan of the idea of European unity, but not under the European Union's political class. Increasing the diversity of a member state of the European Union doesn't increase the resilience of that society, but it does increase the resilience of the powers that be. The more divided a society is, the less cohesive it is, the more easily controlled.
Your culture will adapt to service us.
And in fact, the dashboard obviously includes other factors that have nothing to do with migration, but those factors also tend towards making the member state as a unit less resilient and making the systems within which that member state is integrated more resilient. So, for example, prominently, we have the idea that if a larger percentage of your total exports are made up of resources or goods you had to import from abroad, you are counted as more resilient. So a project contributing to more dependency on longer international supply chains would get funding on the basis that it's making the country more resilient, which of course it isn't. It's making the system within which the country is integrated more resilient and making it harder for the political boogeyman, populists, right-wingers, etc., but also economic nationalists who could be from the left, making it harder for them to ever affect their policies. I talked about this in a conference some time ago. Here's a clip of that.
Anecdotally, I was told by a coworker, I think 3.5 years ago, working on European funds, on consulting for European funds, that resilience, that doesn't really have to do primarily with economic downturns and supply chain shocks and all the rest of it. It's not being resilient to forces external to your society. Really what matters is becoming resilient to threats within the society. And this coworker used the term populism. What was implied was a certain kind of populism, a certain kind of wrong think.
Increasing the internal diversity and external dependence of a society destabilizes it, makes it rely on the dictates of a political class, and finally allows it to be recreated top down in a socially atomized, culturally homogenized form, aligned with the social engineering of the people in charge and divorced from historical identities and traditional morality.